We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
You know I blame it on industry. I blame it on my own hypocrisy. It's education and politicians. No one's willing to step up and speak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. It's April the 14th, 2021, and we are live here at paceradio.net. Tonight, joint host Jude Chiariello joins me with her special guest, who is a cannabis educator and an entrepreneur, and has many years of experience in the cannabis industry as an advocate as well as an activist, plus much more. But first, as always, I gotta get my tongue-twisting words out before I talk to Julie.
Al, you do a dab before we started this. Have you been hitting the hash pipe?
I've actually got the hash pipe right here beside me.
I know, I do too.
I'm just waiting to get some of it bubbling on top.
I think you must have had some bubbling beforehand. I know myself, I took a dab.
Well, I know.
Literally just arrived back up here in Willits from Los Angeles. I made the trek down to the Emerald Cup Awards.
Nice.
And that was totally surreal. It was a completely different experience than it's ever been.
Well,
We've been covering the Emerald Cup for 15 years, and the last many years now, I don't know exactly, I'm not remembering right now, such a stoner, but when it moved from, it started at Area 101, and then it moved to the Medicinal Center, and then it moved to Sonoma County Fairgrounds. And this year, because of COVID, they did it all in a digital format, and they spent the last week with different panels and speakers at 420. We even had Chelsea Handler and Ziggy Marley. And then they did the award ceremony, kind of an intimate award ceremony with some sponsors and entrants and judges in Los Angeles. So I went down there for that. I'm normally sludging through the rain and mud in December in Santa Rosa. And this was definitely different to be in the sunshine in Los Angeles at this kind of art warehouse that had many different spaces that people could hang out, and had these screens which showcased the winners, and Tim and Taylor did a great job. They had some various video teams. One of them was Top Shelf Media, who also does Scum TV, Jerome Valencia, and Michael Rosati. They did some great film. And they also were working with another group, Social Club TV. But it definitely felt like the modern age. We were there, kind of all milling about, and there were these video segments that came out announcing the winners. So it was definitely a different experience.
Yeah, but still, the way you reacted at the beginning, like it was as if it was still surreal, even though it wasn't the full-blown thing, and stuff was done virtually as well as in person. You still found it quite the experience to be part of, and not just being covering.
Oh yeah, it was pure magic. I mean, we've been covering the events, as I said, for 15 years. I myself started back in 2013, but this was my actual first year as a judge.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to see the inside track I'm an herbalist, a certified herbalist, and so I was allowed to be a tincture judge, which I use tinctures every day of my life. I use tinctures, it's really fun.
So when it comes to the judging, did any of your favorites? Do you know? I'm assuming you know the winners. Did any of them win? Do you know, as far as?
Yeah. No, actually, there was a really cool synchronicity. I had two friends and colleagues in the industry, Maya from Omedibles and Micah from Compassionate Heart. I actually introduced them a little bit further, and they knew each other. They knew of each other. But I introduced them again this last year, and they began working on a collaboration, which was to put hash rosin into either MCT oil or olive oil. And as I said, I love tinctures, and I do alcohol tinctures, and I do oil-based tinctures of both. But this is really cool to kind of see all the entrants, and this tincture topped out for the entire team. And it was just so cool to see go through the whole process, which is very meticulous and very stringent. And we have to do, a lot of calculating on many different aspects of the submission. It's not just one thing or the other. We have to grade it on, I think, like 15 different things. So it's really cool to see people that I introduced that did this really cool collab, which I've never seen, hash rosin, which I'm a hash head, and I love hash. And I love the power of hash. And so the hash rosin in the menstruum, either the coconut oil or the olive oil. The olive oil is phenomenal. I mean, I'll sprinkle it on my food and stuff. So I was very happy for them that they won. Because I do think Maya is a superior medicine maker, and I've been using her medicine for years. But I was happy to see Micah from Compassionate Heart do that collaboration and then win together. That's always fun, when people do a collab and then they win together. Yeah. And I know there was. I still have to kind of go sit down and review everything carefully because it was very surreal to kind of be milling about. I didn't actually catch all the winners, to be honest. And I've been traveling, so I need to go back and carefully look at who won everything.
Yes. You'll have to update us down the road with some, stuff that you find out some of the big winners or the surprise winners where people really came out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, and I'll have Tim and Taylor Blake on, one of them at least soon. Nice. I asked him if he could come tonight, and he wasn't available, and so thankfully Jude Thilman is coming on with us tonight. And Jude actually, I believe I met her at an Emerald Cup, and then was so impressed, with who she is. And then, I've seen her at Emerald Cups since then, many. And I'm so thankful, actually, that recently Jude and I got to spend quite a bit of time together in Mendocino. Her Dragonfly Wellness Center is in Fort Bragg, which is a gorgeous place on the coast of Mendocino. And I want to introduce Jude. I don't always read everybody's bios, but I do want to read Jude's tonight because she is a very special woman, and I'm very thankful that I'm getting to know her even more deeply. So Jude Thilman is a medicinal cannabis educator and entrepreneur, bringing over 15 years experience in the cannabis industry as an advocate and activist. She co-founded Dragonfly Wellness Center in 2011 and is herself a cannabis patient. She comes from a lifelong commitment to social change and has been an activist on behalf of many causes, including civil rights, gender and reproductive rights, healthcare for all, peace and social justice campaigns, and many others. She has founded and directed 501c3 nonprofit corporations and national media programs since 1986. She brings 30 years experience in the management of complex, multidimensional projects and in the production of educational media, for which she has received national awards. She strongly believes in healthcare as a human right and sees a return to traditional herbal medicine as sounding the death knell for a pharmaceuticals dominant approach to resolving disease, dis-ease, she notes, which we're going to discuss during the interview. She served on the board of the Medicinal Cannabis Alliance. She served on the steering committee for Measure AF, the effort to end cannabis prohibition in Mendocino County. And she is just a wonderful community member and helps so many people. Welcome, Jude. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us tonight. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Julie. Thank you, Al, as well, for having this wonderful show. And especially thank you for those kind words. I'm listening to you. I'm going, who's she talking about? How am I going to follow this act? It's like, this is going to be a rough act to follow. No, it's very, very, very kind. But then this is something we know about Julie, don't we, Al? She's one of the kindest people I know.
That's
Absolutely.
right. She is. She's always got great information on her guests, and she's got great guests. And it's great to meet you, Jude. Obviously we haven't met before. The information that Julie sent, I can hardly wait to hear and be involved in tonight's broadcast.
Well, I'm happy to be on the show. This is great.
Thank you.
So
and I consider Jude, to everyone listening in, thanks for listening in tonight. And I really think that Jude, as an elder and as a thought leader and visionary and as a Renaissance woman, really, she embodies so many aspects for me of, what these changes in society that we want to see, from how we approach medicine to how we approach our sexuality. And so, we're to everything. I mean, it's every level. I felt like, I called Jude a kindred spirit because you do care so much, Jude. And I want to dig into your story, which is thrilling, and so I think we just roll up our sleeves because we don't even have that long, and I know it's going to fly the time, to just start a little bit with, how you, I have two-part question. Like, when did cannabis first come into your life, and what was that experience like? And what did it kind of begin with you and begin in you, and how did the relationship develop? So let's start there.
Okay. All right. What the heck? So in 1968, I was sneaking out of high school in South Bend, Indiana, and going up to Chicago, south side of Chicago, to parties, pretending to be at my girlfriend's house. In 68, 69, in near Grant Park, Chicago, it was the height of hippiedom and ditchweed. I mean, the stuff that I was selling out of the trunk of my car was just pathetic. But it was like we were so excited to have it. We were so excited to have it, let me tell you. But it's sort of, I was involved in, on Friday nights, going over to Notre Dame University near my house and organizing to send the seminarians from the Catholic Seminary at Notre Dame down to Mississippi and Alabama to register black people to vote. And this was a rough time. It was a dangerous time to be doing this. At the same time, I was involved in organizing young people under the new radical left wing of the Catholic Church, the Second Vatican Council, to get out and get involved in social issues as high school kids, and got kicked off the school newspaper for writing an article in the Adams Eagle, our newspaper, writing an article about the use of napalm in Vietnam. Went to interview the Dow Chemical 9, who were giving speeches a couple blocks away at Potawatomi Park, the Native People's Park there in South Bend, Indiana, and wrote an article about napalm and the use of it against innocent civilians in Vietnam. That was my junior year of high school. Next year, he got called down to the principal's office and was told, high school students don't need to know about napalm. These kinds of experiences I'm telling you about because what I learned at an early age, about 16, 17, when I started to get active in the mid-60s, was that everybody's issue affects everybody. So when I started getting involved in the cannabis culture and cannabis community up here in Mendocino, I was leaving the Bay Area where I'd been in an alternative family structure raising our son with his gay father and his other lesbian mom. When we all had an agreement that we would all stay in the Bay Area until he had finished school and gone off to wherever. He went off to wherever, and I got to come to Mendocino, where I had been coming since the early 80s and loving it, and wishing I could live here. The women that I knew up here at the time were all involved in some kind of healing. They were herbalists, they were acupuncturists, they were yoga teachers, they were Ayurvedic astrologers, I mean, everything, massage therapists. So it's like they all wanted to keep doing their healing arts, but we wanted to come together in a wellness center that included all of those holistic approaches to healing, but of course under the umbrella of the most magical plant there is for healing, and that's cannabis. But none of them wanted to do the admin part. Everybody wanted to do, I want to teach my yoga class, I want to do this, I want to grow my beautiful herb, I want to, on and on, but nobody wanted to do the business side of it. So I had gone to graduate school to get I got a master's in business administration, along with a couple other things, international human rights and communications. So I came up here and I said, okay, this was 2011, and I'd been growing pot since 2003-04, taking it down to the Bay Area, selling it medicinally to just my first real good look at commercial, because all I knew was selling it to friends and selling it to friends' friends and friends' friends and friends. So going to commercial dispensaries, and with some of them feeling like I was a criminal walking in there because of all the bars and the windows. And, so I learned a lot about what were good dispensaries, what were crummy dispensaries. And when I got together with my friends up here to hunt around to see where we could start a wellness center that included a dispensary as well as all these other natural healing modalities, when we started talking, I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to have any bars on the window. I didn't want to have anything that made people coming to visit us feel like criminals. So that kind of stuff. I had a list of what I didn't want to do and a list of what I did want to do, which was we could rent a very small footprint and not spend too much on rent and make a pants full of money and be a regular old pot shop. But we knew that this isn't what cannabis is about. It's not just pot shop pot. This is a 5,000 or more than 5,000 year written record of healing herb, and that healing herb has to be respected, and it has to be in the context of a completely holistic approach to healing. So two themes here. One is that we're connecting issues. All my life I've been connecting issues. We're not in a cocoon. And the other theme was, how do we make what we offer to the public, the interface with the general public who knows nothing about this magic plant, how do we make that a welcome and understandable method for them to heal themselves, for people to take charge of their own health? So that's to include in everything from nutrition to stress relief to everything else that we do as a holistic plan. So those are the two things. The question is not just a smooth road. You don't just say, okay, let's start a wellness center that includes cannabis and a bunch of other cool natural healing things. Oh, and let's hook up the cannabis issue of civil rights and with all the other civil rights issues and with the environmental movement and all the other movements that's connected. It doesn't come just like that. Because one of the things we have up here in the Emerald Triangle, the producer county of the world, the producer counties of if you think about the lucky accident that these hippies in the 60s who did their meccas to India and in the South Asia and came back with all these seeds, these Afghani seeds and everything stuffed down in their pockets, and then they migrated to this beautiful part of Northern California from New York City and San Francisco and LA and wherever they migrated from, and they threw those seeds in the beautiful, dark, rich, loamy black soil in this beautiful sunshine and beautiful clean water that had no extraction industries before from agribusiness or mining or anything that would put toxins in the soil. So our soil was pure and virgin for good medicine, and they were so blown away by what was coming up out of the ground. It was so much better than the dry, dusty brown hills of Afghanistan. This is the Mecca. This is the place for the best cannabis to start to be developed, hybridized, grown, cultivars of all new kinds of inclinations. So all that was fine, but they're also very part and parcel, hand in glove with the Back to the Land movement, the hippie subculture of the 60s and 70s that said, I am not buying into your Leave It to Beaver value system of how I'm supposed to live my life. Consume, 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 take over the rest of the world, extract all their resources, bring them back for us to be rich. That's not the way I want to live. I want to live more simply. I want to live closer to nature, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what this means, Al and Julie, is that we have a whole subculture up here of people who wanted to get away. They want to get away, and they don't want to have anything to do with the government. The government's done nothing but screw them. They wanted to get away from all of the crass materialism and the superficial values of my parents' generation, what was taught in the 1950s, for sure. So what does that mean when we have, all of a sudden, policy issues that are life and death for some of us? And you've got folks up in the hills who won't even register to vote, never mind get engaged civically as activists. It's something that we had to start from scratch with in terms of, not completely from scratch. I mean, there were folks who came here, obviously, from the cities who were active in the anti-war movement and active in the civically engaged sector of the hippie subculture, sure. But for the most part, people came up here to get away. So then we're faced with 2016, 17, 18. We're starting to get legalization, and certainly California is in the foreground. How do we not just sit up in our hills and say, yummy, 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 I'm going to benefit from being legal and I don't have to worry about cops anymore? And yet the people at the table making the law for us in Sacramento are people who don't know anything about our values or lifestyle. So that was bound to be a time bomb that was going to explode in our faces. So since 2014, a group of incredible people, the California Growers Alliance, the Growers Association, the Medicinal Growers Association, transmorphed into the Medicinal Cannabis Industry Association, MCIA, and then into CGA, the MCA, Mendocino Cannabis Growers Association Alliance. I mean, on and on and on. From 2014, we started organizing. And people who saw that the only real change that benefits the regular folks, regular non-rich, top-of-the-heap people, is change that comes about through community and collective action. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's another tough one. Here's our second big mountain we have to climb, because this is a highly individualistic culture. We're raised to think that the Americans are best in the world, and all of this belongs to us by dint of our white skin and privilege and hard work and blah, blah, blah. Well, this sort of nonsensical message that's such a deep part of our culture is the same thing that keeps people cynical and, I'm not going to vote, it doesn't do any good, they're all the same. Oh, I'm not going to get involved in the community, they're all a bunch of jackasses who hate me because I grow cannabis. That's not going to get us anywhere.
And that's what I want to jump in because,
yeah,
you, to me, are a counterculture hero. And when I think about you, you know me, I love to talk about the Renaissance and how we're in a Renaissance.
Yep.
And I think of, I believe the Renaissance began with Gertrude Stein and Alice B. Toklas and Hemingway and all those free thinkers back there in the French salons and having the consortium, And you, to me, are a woman of that ilk. And so I just want to take it back further because we're going to dive into your work with MCA and we're certainly going to dive into your work with Dragonfly. But before we go to the break, I just wanted to go back again and, slow it down and just talk about, what got you activated to, be a counterculture person. Because for me, I know, I was taught about the School of the Americas and the Banana Republics and the Zapatistas and economic warfare. I was taught all that by my Cuban grandfather at 9 years old. And that's what got me activated as a counterculture person who is devoted to change and evolution on the planet in the form of a renaissance. But what got you activated? Who got you all riled up? Where was that part?
Yeah, it's so amazing. I wish everybody had a Cuban grandfather, they could just lead them by the hand and tell them, right? Serious, give them the stories and the lessons that history brings to us. And if people know history, then they know darn well that what to avoid and what kind of authoritarian regimes have happened in the past that look so much like Mr. Trump's. We begin to get that if you understand history. So what changes the individual person? So this combination of factors. I had a boyfriend who was A1 for Vietnam, and A1 meant you were top of the list for draft. I had a nun in high school who was teaching me about the radical ideas of the Second Vatican Council. At the same time, then I had another boyfriend from Notre Dame University involved in this civil rights thing where the university was sending seminarians down. It's a continuation of circumstances repeatedly. My father taught me, although he was a diehard conservative, he taught me fairness. At night, we would watch the riots in Chicago where people were at the Democratic National Convention that summer in 1968 were getting beat up, and he's rooting for the cops and I'm rooting for the demonstrators. And then, we started to have some arguments at home. I was a director of the search movement through high school, which was gathering high school kids from across the city to go in weekend retreats and start to talk about this sort of generational clash that was starting to express itself in the late 50s, early 60s, mid 60s, and how that was causing depression and a lot of kids getting into trouble with drugs, et cetera, et cetera. So I was part of that. And then when I left for college in September of 1969, 2 months later, the first major anti-Vietnam War march, 500,000 people, was in November of 1969. Later there were ones in the spring. There was Cambodia invasion. There were periodic huge marches. This was the first big anti-Vietnam, anti-war march in that era. So my girlfriend, well, she was that too. She was also my roommate and best friend from high school. We just up and said, okay, drop everything, we're going. And it was November, freezing cold, moccasins, blue jeans, and the T-shirts, and we're out hitchhiking in the snow to Washington, D.C., where we spent a week sleeping on the floors of Unitarian churches and getting to know people, participating certainly in that large march. But more than that, meeting people from all over the country and hearing their stories and realizing there's something going on with this war thing and with the civil rights stuff I was doing at Notre Dame. There's something going on that's bigger than me, and it's powerful. It's strong. It's something that it just felt so right to me. And that was the beginning of my national political activism. And but that was, it's a series of fortunate events that took place, Julie, and I feel very blessed and lucky to be part of, as Karl Marx said, we're one of those few generations that are accidents of history because we lived through the 60s. Just, because 1968 internationally was a turning point for the youth movement, right? Whether you're in Mexico City or Paris or wherever the hell you are, Chicago. So, this was an accident of history, and it shaped many of us to a life of activism.
No, that's wonderful. And now we're heading into a second Back to Earth movement, a second Victory Garden movement. And even though I don't think the music is as great as it was in 1969, I love it.
Wait, you're telling me the music in 69
was born back then. Even though I was born in 1976, I was really actually smoking hash joints in 1969, listening to Janis and Jimmy. All right. Forget about it. Forget about it. I was even though nobody died at Woodstock, I died at Woodstock and came back in 1976. But I was there about it.
I love it. That's
great. Okay, Al, take it away before I jump into the next question.
Okay. That's right. All right. We're going to head to break time. When we get back, Julie and I will continue our interview with our guest, Jude Thilman. We got lots more to touch on, I know that for sure. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at paceradio.net.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponic system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
CP operates a medicinal cannabis signing clinic. If you want to grow your own medicinal cannabis and are located anywhere in Canada, then I'd like to suggest that you give them a call. They can be reached at 1-613-967-9888. That's 1-613-967-9888. And grow on with CP.
Pace Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
The People's Alliance of Cannabis in Canada is an organization working to improve cannabis legalization in Canada. They have a mission and values that includes all Canadians, no matter where they come from. The values are including everyone, as no one should be excluded from participating, equality, diversity, advocacy, along with cannabis education and research, plus industry, safety, and professional standards. If this is an organization that has the same values as you, check them out at peoplesallianceofcannabisincanada.ca. Once again, peoplesallianceofcannabisincanada.ca. Check them out.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Hello and welcome back. We are the Pace Radio Show and we are live here at paceradio.net. Tonight in the program, we are joined by our guest, Jude Thilman, the founder of the Dragonfly Wellness Center, which we're going to hear about more tonight during the broadcast, as well as my joint host, skunk owner or co-owner, Julie Chiariello. Well, ladies, you had quite the conversation in the first segment, and Julie, I know you got much more information that we're going to get out of Jude in this next one as well.
Absolutely. I'm excited to dive into something that was right in Jude's bio, that herbal medicine is sounding the death knell for a pharmaceutical dominant approach to resolving dis-ease. And I just want to touch on that because, 25 years ago when I became a certified herbalist, one of the first things that we were taught was about how the pharmaceutical industry that we know today went after the apothecarist and the apothecary, the herbalist. They went after them to shut them down and stop them. And it's a great, great heartache on my heart that modern America does not remember how to gather their medicines from the backyard, to, make their own herbal cough syrups, to make their own root tonics, to make their own dandelion green salad, and know how to eat their bitters and things that were part of human consciousness in the 1800s, where Americans were very hardy and understood how to grow their own food, grow their own medicine. And certainly we saw a resurgence with the Victory Gardens after the Great Depression. But then we had this contrasting effort with the pharmaceutical industry to isolate nature and to put it in pills and to kind of disconnect people from nature and their own self-healing. So, Jude, could you speak to that? And I definitely want to dovetail that into the work that Dragonfly does. But can we start there with what your thoughts are on that and go deeper?
That's a great place to start because, in fact, as I was alluding to in the previous segment, if we don't know history, if we don't know what mistakes we've made in the past or what we've done right in the past, how do we make progress? How do we know how to defeat the stranglehold that the pharmaceutical industry has on all of our healthcare if we don't understand how it works and what the politics and economics of it are? I highly recommend a book called Anatomy of an Epidemic by Robert Whitaker. He traces the history of the pharmaceutical industry taking over medicine in the 20th century. Started with the companies that made the gases on the fields of World War I, mustard gas and things like that. Well, the war ended, and so those kids had all these toys to play with and didn't know what to do. So horizontally, they moved over into fertilizers, agricultural fertilizers, chemical fertilizers to create what became in the 20th century not only the largest agribusiness that ever was in human history here in the United States, but the destruction of our soil, our resources, and the way we looked at food and the way we practiced nutrition all got destroyed. But it also had a huge impact. This agribusiness that was based on fertilizers and chemicals was hand in hand with the growing pharmaceutical industry, which branched out from the fertilizers that it went to after making the gases for the war in World War I into making chemical-based medicines and also herbal-based natural compounds as well. But the pharmaceutical approach was to extract a single chemical compound or to create a synthetic one, beat it to death on a petri dish, and create a pill that had that isolated chemical compound in it. And these pills were designed to suppress symptoms. Very rarely, if at all, would they work with the body in a natural, on a cellular level, root healing sort of approach, which is what our bodies have the basis to do. Now, it wasn't until the 1990s that we understood that all mammals with a spine have an endocannabinoid system. So our clusters of neurotransmitters, cells, and chemical compounds that actually help I always in my classes try to make this in lay language as simple as possible. They're monitoring one major thing in our body, and that's homeostasis, restoring balance to our systems, to our tissues, to our organs, to our whole systems, restoring balance when it is out of balance. Now, throughout the 20th century, we stopped being the hardy people that Julia referred to earlier, the hardy folks that ate natural out of their gardens. They didn't eat prefab foods. So if you think about it, our ancestors, going back 100, 200 years, our ancestors pretty much ate natural food. They didn't have processed white flours and white sugars. They didn't. If they had meat on the table, it was a once a month, maybe Sunday afternoon dinner. If they had wine with dinner. It was Christmas or Hanukkah or something like that. It was a holiday. They didn't have the coffee and the tea and the white sugar and the alcohol and all the stuff that we just routinely in our 20th century integrated into our common habits of how we eat and drink. And as our lives got busier and crazier, more stressed, and people were working harder and harder and longer hours, they wanted prefab food. Prefab food was this great, wonderful other thing that the pharmaceutical industry, along with the agribusiness, could create and convince everybody this is how they wanted to eat. Now, the pharmaceutical industry did a couple magic things during the course of the 20th century to sell themselves to the American public, to all of us, to believe that better living through chemistry meant taking pharmaceutical pills. And that was our best key to health and happiness. And the way they convinced us of this is, first of all, they took psychiatrists out of the realm of quackery in the public mind, and they wedded them with the AMA, got them integrated into medical schools, and gave them, wait for it, a prescription pad. When the AMA decided they would legitimize psychiatrists, bring them into the fold of, legitimate doctors and the legitimate medical establishment, and then it was all subsidized by this pharmaceutical industry, give them prescription pads, give medical doctors prescription pads, take them to golf courses regularly in Malibu or wherever, and bring them free samples of chemical drugs. And then they started national media campaigns in the 50s. The campaign was for all of these depressed women who had been working satisfying jobs as Rosie the Riveter in the factories, and after World War II were told to go back in the home, isolated in the suburbs where they didn't even have their communal, collective family structures to rely on anymore, isolated in their little ticky-tacky houses, and they were depressed. And so what was the pharmaceutical industry's massive 50s-long campaign? Mother's Little Helper, Valium. Mother's Little Helper would take care of all of these complaining housewives. It's like, shut up. It's all in your head. Take this Valium, you'll be very happy, and you'll just keep cranking out babies. So that was that. And in the 60s, they switched and they said, okay, we got a lot of people who are kind of like not mentally stable. There's a lot of dissent, and there's a lot of disgruntled attitudes in the world right now because of civil rights in Vietnam. And it was and people were coming home from Vietnam, and they were hurt, PTSD, etc. Korean War, same thing. But you had a lot of folks who were undergoing some trauma and psychologically were not in good shape. So the pharmaceutical industry jumped on it right away, and they started these massive national broadcast and print campaigns for Prozac. Prozac, yay. It was Time Magazine's Drug of the Year in I forget when. So they did that. Then later we had Ritalin, and along with all of these massive campaigns to get people to turn to drugs for their mental or physical health problems, along with that, they started coming up with these categories of diagnoses: schizophrenia, bipolar, autism, just all this stuff, ADHD. Oh, that kid's just too active. Give that kid, that 2-year-old, give them some Ritalin. They're just too hyperactive. They're never going to sit still in the factories that we call schools and learn rote things so they can take good tests and go off and get paying jobs. They're not going to do that if they're not going to pay attention. Give them some more. Give them Ritalin. Give them something to calm them down. So this was a very concerted, decades-long job, and that the pharmaceutical industry did on us. And I grew up in the same thing, you got a slight headache, take an asprin, take a pill. We all grew up with this. So it was very hard.
Yeah, phenobarbital was huge in
yes.
the 60s. We watched Queen's Gambit and how they were giving the kids the phenobarbital. They called it something else, but that I read up on it, and it was really the phenobarbital. And they were giving this stuff out like candy. And this is the funny thing to me, is that it was the snake oil salesmen themselves that said, let's make pills, even though, because it didn't really go to the root of the issue. And what we know is important to activate homeostasis and self-healing in the human body. And so I wanted to talk about, let's dovetail into Dragonfly Healing Center in Fort Bragg, and how I love it so much because a lot of people don't know, but I ran a yoga studio and a healing center before getting into the cannabis industry 16 years ago. And it had massage and dance and yoga and herbs and healing. And I feel like that's what you've really done with Dragonfly. You've made it this multifaceted experience for holistic health. And it really reminds me of, making deeper, centuries and, epochs old, this idea of the shaman. And what do shamans do? They say, they don't just check out your physical health. They ask you if you've been dancing and singing. They ask you about your joy and your alignment. And so I feel like in the modern age and in this kind of renaissance, we need to get back to that where we're saying, okay, can we approach on a holistic fashion the whole person? So can you dovetail into that mission at Dragonfly and how you guys really are, examples of that?
Well, one of the things that I started doing really soon after we opened Dragonfly in December of 2011 was I made a partnership with a business that was devoted to education, not just making products and selling them. And our mantra was not seed to sale, it's seed to patient outcome. You want to look past when somebody buys something. That's not the end point to make money. So I started going to conferences all over the place. I went to a conference in Columbus, Ohio, of doctors and nurses that wanted to learn about the science of cannabis medicine. I went to a conference at Dominican University in San Rafael. I mean, tons of conferences. The best one, the one that I was most of them were Western medicine doctors coming to hear some scientists from the cannabis community tell them they wanted to find out about cannabis, which is a good impulse. But there were a lot of stumbling blocks. And this is the thing about the hurdles I was talking about that we're all used to just popping a pill, is sort of how do you bridge the gap between everything that we're taught about from the pharmaceutical industry about how to heal ourselves and the slow and natural process of using herbs to jumpstart our body's own chemical compounds that go and fight dis-ease and ill health. How do we bridge that huge gap? So the conference I wanted to particularly highlight, now all the information I learned at these conferences, I was bringing back to Dragonfly, and we're setting up libraries and holding classes every month, 2.5 hours. Had to get people willing to sit for 2.5 hours because there's a lot to cover. But the biggest conference that I liked the most was up in Arcata, and it was sponsored by the Dandelion Herbal Center in Arcata. Dandelion Herbal Center. I think that's the full name. Anyway, it brought together Western medicine practitioners with traditional herbalists and healers, and they had equal standing on the plenary stage. They had equal standing in terms of offering workshops on the side, and the conference was for 4 days. It was fantastic, and I was there, fortunately, and this is what I love to do and helps me learn the most is to, as a documentary producer, as a broadcast reporter, and a newspaper reporter, interview. I'm fascinated, like you, Julie, by people's stories. And so I, from morning, noon, and night, would just pull people aside out of the throng there at that conference and interview them about what the work they do, what do you learn from your patients, what's working best for patients with cannabis. But mostly I wanted to know, how are we going to change the healthcare system in this country in a major way? How are we going to bridge the gap between what we've all been taught as we were growing up, that popping pills is the way to take care of your pains and aches and illness. That's what we've all learned. And how do we, even the cannabis industry, you kind of get stuck on, look at how many isolates you see on the shelves in dispensaries. They're taking individual chemical compounds out of the 300 plus chemical compounds in the cannabis plant. And that's so wrong. So anyway, that was fantastic because people when I asked the question, it started to build some hubbub. And everybody sitting around a long table at lunch, people were really talking about it. How are we going to do this? And believe me, I've got plenty of stories. I'll give you just one about how systems prevent us from doing just that. I was teaching a class, doing my presentation to a big group of nurses and doctors down at St. Jude's Hospital, San Clemente. And there was about 100 nurses and doctors. And I was about a third of the way through, and I was going through the science of how cannabis works in the body and how you got to retrain patients to keep track of their dosing and the ratios of the CBD to THC in their medicine and all the different rules that they have to relearn how their approach to healing themselves. So I was talking about how much time I spend with every new patient, at least 45 minutes, and then I'm completely available every time they want to call me, blah, 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 blah. And this nurse on one side of the room raises her hand and says, "This is fantastic. When are we going to be able to integrate this kind of herbal healing into our clinical practice as Western medicine practitioners?" I took a real deep breath because I wasn't sure how I was going to answer this woman because there were so many things running through my mind about that. And a doctor over in the other far corner raises his hand and he says, "We will never be able to do it." There's a little audible gasp in the room. Oh, no, And he says, and the reason is because I am allowed by the insurance industry to spend an average of 15 minutes with each patient. That's enough time to get the basics down and write them a prescription. I'm given lots of prescription pads, but I'm not allowed to spend this kind of time educating and working with my patients so that they understand how the healing works, so that they understand how to choose and use their medicines wisely. None of that. So I redevoted myself after talking to these doctors, talking to the herbalists who are so frustrated that their patients as herbalists, as natural healers, aren't getting any support from their doctors and nurses if they have it in the Kaiser system or Blue Cross or whatever, and vice versa. There's this big gap, and it wasn't getting crossed. So my passion was always have. What?
There's still a big gap. Oh, there's still a big gap.
Yes.
Only 15% of doctors in the United States of America know about the endocannabinoid system. That's the last statistic that I read. That's extremely alarming that a scientific discovery that was patented by the United States government themselves in the early 1990s is still not known by our medical community. I don't care where you stand. I mean, this is how I feel. I don't care whether you like recreational cannabis. You have a right, a human right to know that you have an endocannabinoid system, which is a system that helps to create homeostasis in the body. It helps to regulate all of the other systems that human beings have. I think that's a pretty important discovery and that people should know it. And that's another reason why I call this a renaissance, because with the last renaissance, we saw a great dark age where science was suppressed in the name of greed. And we see the same thing happening now. Science is suppressed in the name of greed. And there's no way. Only 15% of our doctors know about a scientific discovery that happened 30 years ago. That's ludicrous.
Yep. So why do you think that is? Who's put the kibosh on that communication? I mean, this is where I got really excited about doing education and communication, which was always my life's work anyway. But we started doing videos and just little cartoon videos, 6 minutes long. You can find them on the Dragonfly website. Little frequently asked questions about, like, can I take cannabis medicine and continue to take my diabetes medicine, all kinds of the basic questions that people needed to understand. So we did cartoons, we did interviews, we did, just started producing stuff and writing stuff, handouts up the wazoo, and doing my PowerPoint presentations and traveling around the state with that. And you're right, I had three target markets. One was patients and their families and their support groups. That's critical, frontline. The second was the doctors, nurses, herbalists, acupuncturists, both in traditional medicine, our medicine, and in alternative medicine, the pharmaceutical world. And then the third is our industry itself, back when we started Dragonfly, it was all about, hey, what kind of strains are going to help you with this, and how much THC can you get, and can you grow the plant? And it's not like that. It's more nuanced. It's very different than what our industry, but we come out of a subculture that, for all good reasons, praised and just glorified the wonders of the cannabis plant, and for good reason. But it got a little carried away, got romanticized to the point where we have a hippie subculture running around saying cannabis is going to create global peace and end environmental degradation and everything else. And it's not quite like that.
More to it.
I do believe that the earth is propagating consciousness with the plant, and that cannabis, hemp, mushrooms, and other plant allies are the key to us creating a more regenerative business model for the entire planet. And I think that as science is allowed to be applied, and we kind of release the shackles of this dark age, and we can begin to apply technology and science in sophisticated ways, we can create more regenerative systems. We know this. Science knows it. We know that we could have hemp biofuels and hemp paper, and that would be a much more ecologically sound and regenerative model for the planet going forward. And so it's not just like Pollyanna, fucking unicorns and rainbows and everything's going to be okay. No, we're heading into an extremely dark age still. And the last dark age, 20 million people died in the Black Plague. And it was a huge shakeup of church and state. So we're seeing the same similarity with the pandemic that's happening now. And that this is a huge shakeup. But it's been a shakeup over the last century, Jude. You know that. You're a rebel fighter. Yep. You were on the front lines, the first round. Well, maybe I think the Beat and Gertrude and Alice were maybe the first round, but you guys were maybe the third round after the Beat, after the blues musicians and the zoot suitors. Than the hippies came, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There have been definitely. Well, it is a lot of what Mark's talked about. It's historic accident. In 1848, we had a whole generation. 1968, 1930s, we had a whole generation. The anti-fascist generation. Generations that have fought very hard for working people and for progress. For human rights and values that we can all share. And it comes in waves. And then we go through these periods of reactivity and blowback like we just went through over the last 4 years, and is still a force that we need to watch out for. I put great faith in, and I think these are very connected to the cannabis civil rights struggle, which is the decarceration struggle. Decarcerate our society. We have more people in prison than any other country in the world. And what does that get us? Those kinds of things.
It's human genocide too. I mean, let's see plainly. Prohibition is the large human genocide in human history. More humans have died under cannabis prohibition. Think about all the people who have not had access. Think about all the people who have died in the various drug wars that have been waged across the planet. Because obviously America, or United States of America rather, was the influencer for all these other nations. Fuck you, Harry Anslinger.
Oh, yes.
Shit. And
we can agree there.
Talk about taking us back. Fucking asshole.
Big time.
And also, he chained Billie Holiday to her bed. So fuck him. I hope he's burning in 7 hells for eternity. But
really, yep.
That being said, we still got a lot of work to do.
That's right. We sure do. 100 years of cannabis has only been illegal for 100 years. The rest of the time it's been legal, and unfortunately it's going to take us many years in order to get things changed the way we like to see things. But it's time for us to take a break.
All right.
All right. Okay. Julie.
It's already fixed.
What's that?
It's already fixed.
Yes. Yes. All right. After break we go. We'll continue this conversation with our guest, Jude Thilman, after, let's say, in about 4 minutes. And you're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at paceradio.net. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
The People's Alliance of Cannabis in Canada is an organization working to improve cannabis legalization in Canada. They have a mission and values that includes all Canadians, no matter where they come from. The values are including everyone, as no one should be excluded from participating, equality, diversity, advocacy, along with cannabis education and research, plus industry, safety, and professional standards. If this is an organization that has the same values as you, check them out at People's Alliance of Cannabis in Canada.ca. Once again, People's Alliance of Cannabis in Canada.ca. Check them out.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
CP operates a medicinal cannabis signing clinic. If you want to grow your own medicinal cannabis and are located anywhere in Canada, then I'd like to suggest that you give them a call. They can be reached at 1-613-967-9888. That's 1-613-967-9888, and grow on with CP.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponic system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net. Hey, welcome back and thanks for tuning in to the Pace Radio Show. We're being broadcasted live here at paceradio.net as well as paceradioshow.com. And if you can't catch your live shows, as I said, paceradioshow.com. You'll find them there. Today in the program, we're joined by our guest, Jude Thilman, the founder of the Dragonfly Wellness Center, and our joint host, Julie Chiariello, who is the co-owner of Skunk Magazine. Well, ladies, we've been lightning fast on these segments here, And I know this last one, we're going to cover a lot of ground, and time's just going to fly as it always seems to be. It's always great to hear, what's going on, what you're doing, and your past. And tonight has been one of those stories for sure. And I look forward to hearing more.
Thanks, Al.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Jude is she's such a power force of nature, I mean, she's really, a lot of people who are like half her age tell me they don't understand how she gets it all done, how much she accomplishes. And I agree. So,
Cannabis. Cannabis.
Yes.
Cancer, lesbian badass bitch. Don't take no shit fucking example that she said.
That too.
Jude is here.
Take no prisoners.
Don't fuck with Jude. So, very kind and humanitarian, but don't mess with Jude. I got that message loud and clear. I got that message loud and clear. You used to be a carpenter. Can we touch on that real quick before we jump into MCA? You tell us about
God, there's so many things.
1970s and carpentry with your partner. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Okay, a little bit. Well, I've done so much. I do want to mention the other thing that I was privileged to be able to do is travel around the world and work with different revolutionary groups. So the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, with the ANC in South Africa, working on Nelson Mandela's presidential campaign. I worked in Yugoslavia with the women in black who had an underground railroad to get their sons out of Serbia and away from Milosevic's draft when he was waging war against Bosnia and Croatia. I was in the middle of that. Got to cover up close and personal the Contra War in Costa Rica and Nicaragua. Went to the Soviet Union when it was the Soviet Union and took boxes and boxes of condoms to the gay men in Moscow because they weren't allowed to buy anything but condoms from East Germany because of trade restrictions, and the East German condoms were thick and cracked and nobody used them. So the AIDS crisis was blowing up in Russia. So I have to tell this story. I went to the customs in the Moscow airport, and they pulled my bags aside. They opened them up, and this customs guy says, "What?" What I had in my bag was Marlboro cigarettes, which is what you hold up if you want to get a cab in Moscow to cross 6 lanes of traffic and come pick you up. Just hold up a pack of Marlboros, and they'll be there for you. Full of Marlboros to get cab rides and condoms to give to all these gay men friends of mine. And he says, "What are you doing with all these condoms?" He was kind of mad because it's bringing in a forbidden product that's supposed to be bought from their satellites. And I said, "But I'm on holiday." And everybody in the line and around us just laughed. So he pretty much had to let it go, It would have been embarrassing.
Oh, my God. I'm going to be feeling a lot of fucking let me go. You naughty woman. And you were a Catholic girl. I'm a Catholic girl, too. What is it about us Catholic girls?
Let's listen to Frank sings about them.
There was a group of women who were part of the underground that were organizing against the dictator Milosevic in Serbia. And we were doing solidarity work from the U.S., and I was going to meet with them in northern Serbia at this it was actually an International Women in Black week-long conference. And I brought them a computer, which I was able to get through customs, no problem. I just said I was working in Europe. But I had strapped around my body, close next to my body, all of these $100 bills in, how you carry money and you're close to your body without anything that's going to show up on an x-ray machine. So I was taking all this money to these women's groups who were organizing, and they had no access to Western currency to buy the things they needed to organize the resistance to Milosevic. So I was going through the Heathrow customs, and they called a woman guard over there to look at me. This was pre 9/11, so it wasn't quite as strict. You didn't have these big machines you walked through or anything. But she came over, and they were suspicious of me because I had a computer and all this other stuff. And she says, I want to see what your money belt's got, meaning looking inside my sweater and my shirt. And I said, okay, no problem. And there were all these people standing around. So I started to undo my shirt. Had no bra on. It was really clear it was going to be, in another second or two, it was going to be a very embarrassing moment for everybody. And she called my bluff. She didn't call my bluff. She fell for it, and she said, okay, never mind. I don't need to see anymore. So I was able to get through with all this money for the resistance there, and it was, that was big fun.
Wow, that's got to go in the book.
It's just fun stuff to do. When you feel like you're part of something bigger than you, that it's an international movement for peace and social justice and human rights, then you feel like you're connected to people around the world, and it gives you a good deal of strength and courage. It's really quite amazing. It really is. So here we are. MCA, Mendocino Cannabis Alliance in Mendocino County, is the preeminent trade association that didn't just pop out of anywhere. It didn't just drop from the flies from the sky out of a cloud. These are grassroots activists that many people know from around here. They've been doing things like Pebbles Trippett and Casey O'Neill, and people have been doing stuff in Mendocino for ages on behalf of something bigger than themselves as individuals, on behalf of people of their community, and on behalf of others who needed support and resources and help when they went down to planning and building or to the county offices to try to fill out a stupid permit application so they can grow a little bit of marijuana. It's just like really, we're up against such huge walls. To not have a trade association would be so sad. And every county, we're all part of a larger council, the regional council called Origins Council, and that includes Trinity and Nevada and Sonoma, and Mendocino, Humboldt, Santa Cruz. And we need it. We need to build organizations that can help us be stronger when we're fighting the fight that we're inevitably going to have to do for many years. And to clean up the regulations.
Speak about that organization in terms of what is the vision in terms of what's the driving force of MCA, for instance. I know we talk about words like terroir, appellation, region-specific, but can you go deeper for anyone listening in? Because I feel like the work that the MCA is doing, I always feel like it's quite historical, just like the wine industry, which I'm an enthusiast, 300 years ago began to create a vernacular that really protected the French growing region and informs the rest of the world. I feel like Emerald Triangle has that same opportunity, and I feel like that's what MCA is about. But can you go deeper for us and tell us more about the vision?
Yes, here's what we used to call in the old organizing world of the 60s and 70s is you've got your objective conditions, the best conditions for the finest, high-quality craft cannabis in the world. And that's this rich, loamy soil that has no toxins left in it from extracted businesses, perfectly clean water, perfect sun, perfect climate. So that matched with what we call the subjective conditions, the people's consciousness, the people who came here with a set of values that were challenging mainstream capitalist and patriarchal values in our country. So these folks came, and many of them were activists. They were all just running away to live in a cave. I mean, and even people who ran away to live in a cave are now coming out of those caves and coming together. So the way that what's unique about our region, the Triangle, is that we have a huge amount of independently owned and operated businesses that are also what they call homestead-based cottage industry businesses that also encompasses second, third, and sometimes fourth generation cannabis growers. Nice. So this became this amazing culture, this amazing variety of small independent farmers and medicine makers and now distributors and labs and retail sellers, the whole gamut. But this amazing number of small folks can be the backbone of when let's go back a few decades. Let's look at another industry that has some lessons to give us. The wine industry was facing in the 50s, 60s, 70s the challenge of trying to get the American consumer to see it as good as France. France was the gold standard in the world, right?
Exactly.
So Richard Mendelsohn, who is an attorney that works for us in the cannabis industry today, he was for decades, throughout the 80s, he spent his time in France helping the appellations get codified so that appellations were robust. They were geographically based. You don't have a Mendocino appellation or a Humboldt appellation because nature doesn't respect those little artificial boundaries on a map. It's about the terroir, which has to do with the slope, the height of how high up in the hill you're growing, how low in the valley, what's the water source like, and the culture around it, the culture of love, the no monocropping, but having all kinds of flowers and vegetables and everything else mixed in with your cannabis. That's sustainable practices, all of this. So you've got a culture, you've got a terroir, you've got unique conditions, you've got an extraordinary number of small family-owned businesses that you don't have in the huge corn and soybean producers in Kentucky and Florida and wherever that are just carrying out those crops to sow hemp or cannabis. I mean, it's just not the same conditions. It's not the same culture. It's not the same anything. So we've got something that we want to protect. Now, all of history tells us that it's not protectable. Because capitalism is so powerful, it's so encroaching. It comes in with such resources. It's deep-pocketed, money up the wazoo. It's got attorneys. It's got insurance brokers. It's got everything. How do we stay alive? So you need to have trade associations like MCA that could go to bat for you, pull people together. For example, on the 19th of March, the Planning Commission was going to look at the Board of Supervisors' recommendations around expansion, bringing in the Phase 1 operators, getting them licensed so that they can get their annual licenses, all of the problems that Mendocino County has been facing largely because of the mistakes and the bad planning on the part of the county government. So we sent out a word. We said we need people to step up and give public testimony about how we feel about how our land is going to be used. What's the zoning regulations that are going to allow this but not that? What are the things that are going to protect what we're doing in terms of sustainable horticultural practices? How are we going to protect this valuable nugget we've got in the region called the Emerald Triangle? So everything is working against us. But here's back to the lessons of Napa and Sonoma. You had two sectors of the industry. You had grape growers, and then you had the vintners. And they were generally miles apart from each other. Their interests were slightly different. Sometimes they worked together in a family business. But they came together in a unity that was so important in the 80s. We're talking in the 80s, this period of time when they decided, look, we could challenge this image of France as the best wine in the world. We can say we've got good wine here too. And what we'll do is we'll create craft, high-end bottles. So you'll have your $6 or your $10 bottle. We always have that mech wine, like you have mech pot, crap stuff that's sold in high volume, and that's how people make money. But we have something special here. Napa, Sonoma has a special group of vintages that can be matched with any of the best Bordeaux or what have you from France. So when he did this, when they did this,
they learned from that. I mean, the people that were responsible for rooting the wine industry actually had great respect. And many of them worked with the vintners to learn the craft and then wanted to develop it and inspect it. I mean, this is the same thing that I feel the Emerald Triangle is doing with the rest of the planet. It's why Skunk Magazine covers so many stories from California, not because I have favoritism, but simply because California is akin to the French growing region for wine, which it can inform the planet on the leading edge of what is in development.
It is on the cutting edge. It's way ahead of Washington or Colorado, Oregon on so many levels. And it's just it's not like America is better than the rest of the world, California is better than the rest of the country. It's not that at all. We have these extraordinary circumstances in our history, in the people who immigrated to California, in the conditions of growth.
That's a lot of people need to know that the modern cannabis industry came from the hippies that moved up from San Francisco and other parts to live in Mendocino and surrounding Emerald Triangle regions to grow not just cannabis, but food and medicine, other forms of medicine, the solar movement, right?
And aren't we lucky?
We never can forget that's what created this legacy, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's the whole logic of capitalism is to destroy that. It's the whole logic because big is better. You make a higher profit margin when you can mass produce. It doesn't matter if your quality goes down. It's all about the profit margin. And there's nothing in our history. I mean, we tried in the 60s with communes in the country, but we had transport and supply issues. We had capitalization issues. We were surrounded by a system that was not supportive of our hippie communes. So we've got the same challenges with the cannabis industry and the cannabis culture and cannabis community. We've got the same problems, and we have to be organized and educate ourselves and educate the public. We have to educate everyone on these issues. We have to turn the prohibition mentality of 80 years around on its head. And we have to work together. And we have to not be afraid of conflict. We've got conflicts going on in every cannabis community in the country. You bet. About size, about expansion, about growing methods, about sun-grown versus indoor, on and on and on and on. We cannot be afraid of conflict. It's good for us. We will grow together if we can, get through it and not be afraid of it. Take it on. And that's why we need trade association as well, as we talk about this stuff.
That's great
constantly.
advice. Don't skirt away from the difficult conversations. Get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. That's the best way that we're going to continue to usher in the change that we need to so many different facets of the global anti-prohibition movement that it's still just barely, I still feel like we're an infant in its beginning stages. A lot of people don't realize how many great human rights injustices are still taking place. So I want people to be able to follow you and find you, Jude. So can you tell us, just take your time, but tell us about the different projects that you're working on and go slow and let people know where they can find you with Dragonfly, with MCA, and the other social projects that you're working on.
Well, there's so much going on right now. We're the latest battle today. Every day it's something. MCA is really focusing on giving our every ounce we've got to the county, not screwing up its ordinance rectification, because the cannabis ordinance that the County of Mendocino put together has left people high and dry and not able to function, not able to grow, not able to create their businesses, not able to secure the support. It's really a nightmare. It's really a nightmare, and it's statewide. But frankly, what we're learning is that everybody in the state sees Mendocino as one of the most egregiously messed up systems right now. So MCA is focusing on that's on the macro level. For myself, aside from the policy areas, I work on fundraising, I work in the executive committee and in the policy committee, and I'm also in economic development of the MCA with the county's Move 2030 initiative, which is figuring out how to Mendocino, believe it or not, is one of the poorest counties in California. It's down in the bottom 5, which is remarkable. Workforce development. So one of the projects I'm working on is creating a multi-sectoral, specific to cannabis industry apprenticeship program. So there'll be scholarships for apprentices to come from around the country to learn about how to cultivate, how to process, how to create medicines, how to distribute, how the full supply chain, how to retail the medicines that we grow and make in the Emerald Triangle. So they'll be coming here, and it's in conjunction with Mendocino Community College. You'll have 120 hours of classroom work in which of the 4 tracks you want, from cultivation through laboratories, through processing, through distribution and retail. So it's a whole. But just recently we've been threatened with losing the money. The state gave the county $2 million, and now they're saying, well, we're not sure we have enough to really do the apprenticeship program, which is this would be an outstanding way to keep the beauty and the preciousness of this resource of the Emerald Triangle alive in the minds of everyone around the country, to have that kind of reputation, So anyway, so that's what we were fighting over today. Every day is a different fight. But we've got, I'm looking for anybody who wants to work with Dragonfly's attempt to get public education about medicine out into the community. I go to the Willits Hospital. I go to the Rotary Club, the Kiwanis Club, the Mendocino Coast Chamber of Commerce. I'll go speak to anybody for free to get people to begin to appreciate and understand the value of cannabis as traditional medicine. Nice. We do classes. Well, COVID hiccuped us for a while in terms of classes at Dragonfly, but we're going to start doing webinars, and I'm hoping by summer to open up and have real classes there again.
And what's the website? And what's the website?
Yeah, dragonflywellness.org. O-R-G. Dragonflywellness.org. O-R-G.
And I
what else did you?
On Instagram?
That's above my pay grade. One of my staff takes care of that, and I can't really answer the question. I'm sorry.
No, here, let me tell people. Hang on a second. I looked it up earlier.
Oh, good.
I actually tagged you in the Instagram post.
Can you say it, Al?
I'm actually, just so you know, I'm speeding to it right now.
Thank you.
I apologize, folks. I'm pretty old school. I don't do a lot of social media.
Well, no, I completely agree with you, because there's so much out there right now, and I only focus on like 3, because it's just there's just so much out there. Yeah. How do you keep up with it all? It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Dragonfly Wellness Center.
Okay, cool.
Well, Instagram is Dragonfly
Wellness Center. Yeah, it's followed by Julie Chiariello. You know who she is?
Never heard of
her. Your name it appears as a follower. Yeah. So.
Okay.
There you go.
Awesome.
Well,
so go and give Jude a follow. How about MCA? Where can we follow you there?
MendocinoCannabis.com is to learn. And please join, sponsor. If you're in a nonprofit, we can become partners, or we promote each other's events. There's a lot of education there. It's just important. It's important to get organized and to work together.
Yeah, it is. It is. Things are much easier when you have many hands helping out.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that.
Yep.
Yes, and we're going to be working together, Jude, and I'm thankful for that. So thankful.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Absolutely.
It was wonderful spending time with you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Both of you have been both kind and gracious, and thank you for letting me join you.
Yeah, it's been great having you on the show. And I'm sure Julie will have you on in the future at some point as well.
100%. And I am encouraging Jude to write for the magazine.
Are you?
And so people definitely go and check out skunkmagazine.com. We have a bunch of new content going up. The April issue just hit the street, and it has Alex and Allison Gray on the cover, as well as David Bronner. And,
nice.
Jude's voice hopefully will be shared in the months to come.
And
we love you all, and thank you all to all who's tuned in tonight. We appreciate you.
That's right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Thanks,
all right.
folks. Alrighty. Take care.
My thank yous go out to our sponsors, Legacy420.com, BMAHydroponics.com, the Camelford Lifestyle Shop in downtown Camelford, as well as Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions, found at drbuckcts.com. And as always, big thank you to our guests tonight, Jude Thilman, founder of Dragonfly Wellness Center. We really appreciate you coming on and talking to us and our listeners, and going back into that stuff from the 60s. And hearing those stories from then to what you're doing now has been fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Al.
And to Julie, as always, thank
Judy.
you. And thank you to our listeners. And good night.
Thank you, Al. Love
You're
ya.
welcome.
You know I blame it on industry.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Do you want to hear what patients and cannabis advocates have to say? If so, then catch the Pace Radio Show Wednesday nights here on paceradio.net.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.